Hello, hello, hello. If everybody could begin to find their way back to the tables for the keynote. Hello, hello, hello. If you could hear me, clap your hands. There we go. Everybody could find their way to a table, please. Well, I want to stay on time, so we're gonna get going. I hope the morning breakout sessions were productive. I see everybody networking, which is what we want to see. Again, I want to encourage that. Try to sit with somebody at lunch that you do not know. Try to meet as many people as you can that you do not know. Find out what they're doing. Find how that might coordinate with what you're doing, and figure out how to do a project together. The more we collaborate, the more powerful each of our projects become, and the better off our community as a whole will be. So, going back to my comments this morning when I opened the summit concerning the Earth Summit's vision that the issues of poverty and environmental sustainability be treated as one systemic issue rather than two unrelated issues, and this being one of the reasons that we chose the theme for this year's summit of equity and sustainability, a more inclusive vision for the future. It is also the reason that we have invited Van Jones to deliver our keynote address. Van has been one of a new generation of leaders who understands this vision and who has worked in both the government sector and the nonprofit sector to bring issues of poverty and sustainability together. He worked in the Obama administration as the special advisor for green jobs and is co-founder of the Dream Corp, which has the Green for All initiative as one of its key components. And I really urge all of you to go and look at Dream Corp and look at those projects that are in there. And you can just Google Van Jones, it'll come up, vanjones.net. The Green for All advocates environmental solutions that prioritize families and workers living on the front lines of some of the worst polluted areas in America. One of the issues that constantly comes up as we talk about this integration or connection between equity and sustainability is the issue of environmental justice. Too often we want to talk about economic and social justice, and we leave environmental justice out of that equation. It's a key component of that equation. And if we don't address it, we don't address the other two. Van is the author of 2 best-selling books, The Green Collar Economy. Again, I encourage you to read that, and Rebuild the Dream. Both are wonderful. He has a new book coming out, which is called Beyond the Messy Truth. Will be out in October, is that correct? In October, so watch for that. He has been the recipient of too many honors to list, but those include Time Magazine's 100 Most Influential People in the World and the NAACP President's Award. He is most often seen these days, including last evening, on CNN, where his recent post-election program, The Messy Truth, explored opinions of people outside of the Beltway about critical issues facing us in our communities and a nation. And it is those conversations that he does out in the communities that really equips him uniquely to be here in the heartland, where our concern is less what's going on in Washington, but how we can transform our own community. There will be a Q&A afterwards, and there's a mic in the back. We would have put it in the middle, but you had been stepping over people, so you'll see it back there. So when he finishes, just line up back there for the questions and answers. I can think of no one better to help us consider and think about the issues of equity and sustainability than Van Jones. Please help me welcome him to Cincinnati and the Midwest Regional Sustainability Summit.
I'm actually here. The weird thing about being on TV is that um, you actually can't see the people you're talking to. Um, so it's just me and Jeffrey. Um, and you know how those conversations tend to go. So um, it's good to be here and it's good to get a chance to see folks. I'm a soundbite guy, but people can't eat sound bites. I do framing, I do messaging. People can't live in frameworks and messages. People have to eat real food, they have to pay real bills, they have to live in real homes and real communities. And that's why gatherings like this are so important, because that's your work. That's what you do. And if you watch enough television and if you spend enough time in social media, you would think that we were in the middle of some kind of civil war, maybe shooting tweets instead of bullets. But and it's sometimes, I think, hard for folks like yourself to realize that you really are a solution for a lot of the nonsense that we're talking about in Washington, D.C. What do people want? They want more work, more wealth, and better health. There is no better pathway to more work, more wealth, and better health than an inclusive green economy. That's the answer. So we can keep with the food fight in Washington, D.C. For the midterms and next election, but at the end of the day, it's going to come down to people like yourselves in this room to actually demonstrate in the real world that we can actually grow an economy, reduce poverty, and reduce pollution at the same time. So I want to just, because you guys are so pragmatic and so practical and are up against such serious challenges, I want to take a much bigger step back and talk a little bit more historically, because we do have some weird things that go on when we talk about sustainability. First of all, if you tell most people that you work on sustainability, what they know is you went to college. That's their basic takeaway from that. So, so we have to do some just initial reminding of ourselves that this quest that we have is not the property of any one income bracket, any one gender or racial group. In fact, when I first started working on, I don't call them environmental issues, I call them ecological solutions. When I first started working for ecological solutions, I was in Oakland, California. And I came into this work in a strange way. And the reception that I got in Oakland was not very positive. I had been working to get kids out of jail and into jobs for about 10 years. California had built the biggest prison system in the world, still is. California, the #1 incarcerating state in the country and the #1 incarcerating country in the world. So ground zero for global mass incarceration, California, and the two centers of gravity for that, Los Angeles and Oakland. I'm working in Oakland as a young attorney, trying to stop this expansion of prisons and trying to get kids out of jail and into jobs. Good news and bad news on that. Good news is we were actually able to close 5 youth prisons in California. We were able to cut, yeah, you can applaud for that. We were able to cut California's youth prison population by 80% with no increase in youth violence or youth crime. But I burned out. Too many funerals. with young people in the caskets and gray-haired people sitting up in the pews, the opposite of the way it's supposed to be. I burned out. Too many coalition meetings that devolved into acrimony and infighting, a lot of it driven by me, pre-therapy. And I got to where my hands would just shake. I couldn't sleep. And I just had to take a break. I just couldn't, I wasn't functional. And it was everybody else's fault, by the way. That's when you know you're in trouble. And so I decided to go get away from some of these troubles, and I found a place in California called Marin County. Now, those of you who've been to California are smiling and nodding. Marin County is just over the bridge from Oakland. Marin County is quite different from Oakland. It's hidden from Oakland. People in Oakland don't know it's there. But if you can get over the bridge to Marin County, they have all kind of stuff in Marin County. Solar panels, hybrid cars, salads. I mean, all kind of stuff you never see in Oakland. People walking around with yoga mats, you know, and they're all happy. And you know that they're happy because they say, well, how are you doing? Oh, I'm quite happy. You say, well, I guess you're happy. And they have retreat centers. We study Buddhism and all this. And I started going, mainly because my friend said, please get away from me. And I started getting better. Started getting better. Physical health got better. I was eating organic food. My emotional health got better. Hands stopped shaking. And then I had one of those moments that you sometimes have in your life. Because I'm driving back and forth. So I go home to Oakland, where we have cancer clusters, where the kids go into school buildings. The school buildings have metal detectors. And about a third of the kids are setting off the metal detectors. And you're saying to yourself, oh my God, these kids are bringing guns to school. Oh my God, they're bringing knives to school. No, asthma inhalers. Asthma inhalers. A third of the kids, because the port is so polluted. So I'm literally going from no jobs, cancer clusters, asthma epidemic, violence, 30 minutes away to Marin County, good jobs, clean air, thriving economy, organic everything, solar this, solar that. And one day I'm on the bridge. I said, why do I have to leave Oakland to experience any of these ecological benefits? I said, this is ecological apartheid. I said, we are living in ecological apartheid, where we literally have ecological have-nots and ecological haves within 30 minutes of each other. I said to myself, Dr. King, Ella Jo Baker, Bayard Rustin, and all those great heroes and sheroes would be appalled to see an outcome like this in the 21st century. It's one thing to have racial segregation and class segregation in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s. But what are we doing in the Bay Area, the most diverse part of America? Oakland, California, 31 languages spoken in the public schools with only 300,000 residents, 31 languages. And yet somehow, even there, we have somehow reproduced the very thing Dr. King and Fannie Lou Hamer and Ella Jo Baker were fighting against. But where is Bull Connor? Where is the Klan? Where are the dogs and the hoses to force us apart? They are nowhere in evidence. And yet when Dr. King said he wanted equal protection, you don't have equal protection for these children in Oakland. They are exposed to pollution that if your child was exposed to or mine, we would run away. They can't run away. Poverty traps you. Equal protection in the 21st century has to mean equal protection from the environmental harms of industrial society and the environmental risks of climate chaos. And yet we were failing to deliver on that in the Bay Area, not a red state. And worse, if you can get worse, Dr. King, Ella Jo Baker, Fannie Lou Hamer, Bayard Rustin, they weren't just talking about equal protection from bad stuff. They were also talking about equal opportunity to good stuff. Because this ecological era isn't only defined by ecological harms, it's also defined by ecological opportunities. We were in the middle of a solar boom, in the middle of an organic boom, in the middle of a hybrid car, electric car, clean bus boom in the Bay Area. And yet, who was getting the contracts? Who was getting the jobs, the training, the entrepreneurial opportunities? Ecological apartheid. With no Bull Connor. And I said to myself, these young people in Oakland need green jobs, not jails. Green jobs, not jails. 4 syllables that just came into my mind like a bomb and changed my life. Just changed the direction of my life. Because that, as you said, sir, that's social justice, that's criminal justice, that's economic justice, that's racial justice, that's environmental justice in 4 syllables. And it just took me over. So I then decided, having met so many more extraordinary people in the ecological space, mostly white, mostly affluent, mostly in Marin County, that I was then going to go and I was going to tell my sisters and brothers in Oakland that there was a green wave coming and that the green wave should lift all boats. That if that solar panels don't put themselves up, that somebody's going to have to do that work. Why don't we take young folk who are standing out here on street corners and train them to put up those solar panels and make me much happier because they get on my nerves standing in front of my house. But if they were on top of my house, I'd be happy. They're putting up some solar panels. I figure I wouldn't be alone in that view. They could have green jobs and not jails. So I went to Oakland to explain this epiphany. And I said, we need, I'm a good speaker, man. So I was confident that I would find a good hearing in Oakland. Au contraire. Green jobs. You mean jobs with money? Okay, I'm not communicating something, right? So my folks in Oakland didn't understand the idea of green jobs. Jobs, great, but green, who cares? Then my folks in Marin County thought I was amazing. Oh my God, he's amazing. But what does it have to do with like jails? I don't understand that part. So it was rough. And I had to develop an ability to try to bridge what you guys are doing, trying to bridge what you were saying earlier today. Neighborhood Economic Development and Sustainability Director should be the same office. How are you going to develop a neighborhood with jobs, but the jobs might kill you because they're environmentally not sound? So you put money in somebody's pocket economically and you take it out to give it to the doctor. You take the money out to give it to the emergency room. That's not an economic development strategy. Or how are you going to have some strategy around the environment that's more passionate about trees than kids out here dying? That might be ecologically sustainable. It's not politically sustainable. So I finally realized that I had changed. I wasn't this plus that. I wasn't some kind of walking coalition inside of myself. I had come to believe something. We're not supposed to talk about that anymore. Beliefs and values and says, oh, well, what's your program and your 10 points and your grant proposal and your grant proposal is better than hers and all that. Yeah, you do that. But I had come to believe something. We don't have any throwaway species. We don't have any throwaway resources. And we don't have any throwaway neighborhoods or children either. It's all precious. It's all sacred. And it all needs to be honored and treated that way. And so I decided that this wasn't going to be a summer project for me. It wasn't going to be and I had to figure out a way to make it real. And so what I did was I went to the Oakland City Council with a proposal, a concrete proposal. Now, the Oakland City Council, if you don't know, has, I think, 9 factions and 5 members. Okay? So, in other words, politics in Oakland is rough. About 9 different factions, only about 5 members of the council. Because you talk to the same person on Monday, and you talk to them on Tuesday, totally different answer. So it took a while, but we got something called the Oakland Green Jobs Corps passed. And we had $150,000 to hire some kids from the neighborhood to put up solar panels, learn energy efficiency and weatherization, and a little bit of organic curriculum on the side. And man, we thought, this is, 10 years ago. And man, we thought we had beat Warren Buffett. I mean, we were just $150,000? $150,000 for our program? You better get off my face. Happy as hell. And went to work on the program. Of course, it was a disaster. All programs you do. It's terrible. And but it was authentic. And we were working on it. And then I made the mistake of hiring a young person. I love young people, but don't hire them for everything. Gotta be selective, no offense. Gotta be selective. And so I made a mistake of hiring this young woman to be my quote unquote receptionist. But it just turns out that 19-year-old Filipina kids don't listen to NPR. They don't. It's not a stereotype. Ask them, they don't. And so she kept giving me this note, true story, that a woman named Nancy Pelosi wanted to talk to me. I said, I don't have time to talk to this Nancy Pelosi. I'm trying to change the world, so. And then I thought to myself, after the third message from Nancy Pelosi, that maybe this might be Nancy Pelosi. At the time, the Speaker of the House and the elected Congresswoman from San Francisco right across the bridge, and it was. And she heard about our program. She thought it was a good program. And she wanted me to come to Washington, D.C. and talk to all of her committees about the fact that we had found a way to fight pollution and poverty at the same time by taking the young people who most needed work and giving them the opportunity to do the work that most needed to be done, repowering and cleaning up America. So I went and I got a chance to testify in front of a bunch of her committees. And a guy named George W. Bush was impressed enough that he signed a bill called the Green Jobs Act of 2007 that put $150 million into spreading that little program all across the country through the Department of Labor. Wrote a book about it. The book became a bestseller. Now, you know why they're clapping? I'm going to digress real quick. This is a true story. When I first wrote the book, some people know this story. When I first wrote the book, I took it to every publisher in America and was turned down by every publisher in America. This is 10 years ago. And their reasoning was this, because I was hurt. Nobody likes rejection. I have low self-esteem. I had a book agent, and she kept trying to buck me up. We'll go, we'll take it to one more. They all turned me down. I said, well, why? It's a great book, great. Well, just keep trying. I said, no, you know what's wrong. Why won't they publish my book? Well, I'm going to tell you the truth, man. This is what they think about your book. Well, there's never been an African-American best-selling environmental writer ever in the history of American literature and letters. And as far as the publishing industry is concerned, there's a reason for that. Black people do not read green books, and white people do not read black books. Therefore, nobody's going to read your book. It's 10 years ago. It's not 1932. Long story short, the book debuted a New York Times bestseller. It's now in 6 languages around the world, 100 US universities last year alone. And the publishing industry was wrong because the American people are a lot better than the cynical elites know. And we proved it with that book. And then when the book came out and hit the bestseller list, a guy named Barack Obama read the book. And I got a chance to go and spend 6 months with him in the White House, not with $150 million, but with $80 billion as a part of the $787 billion stimulus package he pushed through that saved America. But $80 billion of that was for green and clean solutions, similar to the ones that you are fighting for and working for here. Now, that story should have had a happier ending, both for me and for the country, but we're all still here. We're all still here. And a little bit older and a little bit wiser, with the stakes a little bit higher. And I think it's important for us to remember that sometimes good ideas take a while to break through. We had enslaved human beings in this country, not for a weekend, not for a decade, not for a century, but for almost 300 years. I'm a 9th generation American, by the way. I'm a 9th generation American. I'm the first person in my family that was born with all my rights recognized by this government. I was born in 1968. My cousin Kenya was born in 1964, before Johnson signed the last civil rights bill. So I'm the first person in 9 generations born with all my rights recognized by this country, by this government. So in this country, we had enslavement for almost 300 years. Then we had a civil war, and after this, which was at that point the bloodiest war in human history, to get us to apartheid. And we had apartheid in the United States for 100 years. We didn't have a democracy in the United States until the mid-1960s. So I mean, this is a very young democracy, if you mean everybody gets a chance, everybody counts, everybody matters, everybody gets a chance to vote. So it sometimes takes ideas longer than an annual report to get done. And we sometimes beat ourselves up because, well, geez, we promised the earth, moon, and stars in the grant proposal just to get the little money. And then we get the money, and then it's time to write the annual report, and you almost got to lie, or it's like, can we get a really heartwarming picture? We got any good anecdotes? I mean, gotta polish this thing up, But this stuff takes a while sometimes. But it takes less time when we help each other. And that's part of why I was excited to come here. What we've gotten away from in the country is a truly ecological view that we need each other. The fundamental breakthrough in understanding it in terms of ecology is that you can't just pull one little critter out or one little plant species out and understand what's going on. That all these things interrelate, and they're in this dynamic balance with each other. And there's a wisdom that emerges from understanding the whole that's not available if you're just a partisan for one critter or a partisan for one kind of plant. That you actually have to have some empathy and sympathy and insight into all of it to really understand any of it. That is a profound breakthrough in terms of ecological understanding. And yet, so many of us don't apply that ecological insight to each other. Who does that group think that they are? Well, they're too much of this, but at least we have that. Or it becomes racial, or it becomes political, or it becomes just turf-based, or it just becomes a bunch of BS. Because we forget that we need each other. And no tough problem can be solved by you by yourself, by your organization by itself. It requires cooperation. And that's hard. And it's hard for a non-obvious reason. It's hard because most of us who do this work are very sensitive people. A lot of us naturally are, quiet as it's kept, introverts. We weren't the high school quarterbacks. A couple of us maybe, but not most of us. We don't have a whole lot of cheerleading, homecoming queen folks here. We were on the margins as kids. Some of us were on the margins in our families. And something about that broke our hearts open to the point where we care a little bit too much about other people. And yet sometimes we don't know how to relate the way we should even to the person sitting next to us. And this weird combination of kind of being big-hearted and awkward and just kind of strange, but wanting somehow to make the world better creates an interesting set of challenges for us just as human beings. And so we'll tend to pull into our own. We'll tend to draw our circle a little bit small practically, even though it's big philosophically. And that's where the next breakthrough has to happen. We were talking about this. We've got to learn how to work with each other. We've got to prioritize that. I love what you were saying about if we can just get one project 1 inch together. It may not solve every problem in the world, but it might solve some problems with us. Just to find one project and move it forward 1 inch together. Because then we start working that other muscle. And we start realizing how much power there is. There's not a problem in this region you couldn't solve if you locked that door. If you took out your phones right now and put them on the table, don't fall. You have in this room right now the phone numbers and the emails of every major power player in this region. You don't need a lobbyist. You have each other. But you don't play that way. You don't play that way. You're worried about your grant, worried about your contacts, worried about your award. That might have worked at some other point. It's not going to work now. And so I always talk about my mental health challenges because that breakdown forced me to look at myself and have a breakthrough. And that's what's required now. We're going through a breakdown. I don't care who you voted for. This is a breakdown. People say they saw me on TV last night. I wish you hadn't. That's embarrassing. To be on national television. I don't care who's right or who's wrong. To be on national television. And the thing about CNN, it's not just national television. I don't mean to put anybody else down, but they don't watch Fox in Kenya. They don't watch MSNBC in China. When you see us on CNN, that's worldwide. That's 5 continents. They know penguins know Wolf Blitzer. So, and it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to be sitting there with grown people calling each other names. And he said, she said, nonsense from high school. And this is our government. This is our government. So all this little nonsense y'all been doing might have worked before. But you have the solutions in your hands. Hurt people holler. And you may not like the sound of it, or you may like the sound of it. But when you see people voting for a Donald Trump, or you see people voting for a Bernie Sanders, or you see people marching with Black Lives Matter, or you see them marching with the Tea Party, or Occupy Wall Street, when you see wave after wave of protests and upset from the left and the right in this country, hurt people holler. Well, I don't like this group. I don't like this group. They're all stupid. They're all this. You're adding to it. We can sit up here and play the blame game, or we can fix something. We can show somebody something. And we can show somebody that there's no way this solution would have happened if you didn't have black and white and brown and everybody else working together. If you didn't have male and female working together. If you didn't have Republicans and Democrats working together. Business and labor and civil rights and women's rights working together. None of these solutions can get done. None of them. With just you by yourself. And now the country desperately needs you. Desperately needs you. And so I'm very, very happy to be here. And this is not my normal speech because it's not a normal time. And frankly, you're not a normal group. You're all weird. But I'm happy to be here. Thank you very much.
So if you have questions, again, the microphone is at the back. Just line up and ask them, and I'll just let you handle it.
Sure. So how long do we have? We got about 15 minutes. I'm a TV guy. Usually they have a big clock and we can see it, but I'm up here just swimming. I don't know. So, any questions? They got a microphone back there.
Hello.
Hey.
My name is Amanda.
Hey.
I really connected with your story about Oakland, and that's partially because I'm from Michigan, and Flint is really close to my heart. I have a lot of family and friends who lived there, and I think it's really important to invest in our communities that need new energy for a lot of the same reasons that you were talking about. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on how to change ecological policies in areas that are impoverished that really need it.
Good. Well, one thing is getting the demand up for some of the solutions. There is this kind of stereotype that this is just some white folk stuff. And we're all grown folk, we can talk honestly, right? Well, this environmental stuff, it's just some old white folk stuff. And I think sometimes both sides buy into that in terms of this racial divide in America. And on the policy side, the environmental movement is the only progressive movement in the United States that is explicitly racially segregated. Explicitly. We have mainstream environmental groups, meaning the white groups, and they have $100 million budgets. And then we have EJ groups, environmental justice groups, meaning the people of color groups, and they have $100,000 budgets. And nobody thinks that's weird. I mean, just explicitly racially segregated environmental movement in the United States. And it's based on a lot of misunderstanding. So one thing I think is important to point out is that, first of all, the idea that Europeans care about the earth and other folks don't. You can't find much evidence of that. In fact, you want to tell the true history, if you're a person of color in particular, and we'll come back to Europe, it was your great-great-grandmother that told the colonizer, you can't do what you're doing. Your great-great-grandmother in Africa, your great-great-grandmother in Asia, your great-great-grandmother here in the United States, if you're Native American, your great-great-grandmother throughout the Americas told the colonizer, hold on a second, this river is sacred. You can't dam this river. This whole grove of trees, that's sacred. You can't just chop all this stuff down. That was your great-great-grandmother saying that. And what the colonizer said about your great-great-grandmother was, you're a dumb heathen. You're worshiping rocks and stones. This is not a sacred grove. This is called lumber. We're going to chop it down for money. I can put a price tag on the river, I can put a price tag on these trees, and I can put a price tag on you. That was what the colonizer said. Now it turns out, 100 plus years later, great-great-grandmama kind of knew what she was talking about. It turns out if you chop down those trees, you're going to have floods because those trees were playing a particular role in the ecological system. You dam up that river, you're going to have all kind of problems back upstream. It turns out that your great-great-grandmother was speaking a kind of ecological scientific wisdom in poetic form, misunderstood by the colonizer. Now the colonizer's children have to come back and say she was right. But people of color in the U.S. are so colonized that we don't even recognize our own great-grandmother's wisdom coming back into the world. So here her wisdom comes back and we say, oh, that's just some old white stuff. Now, if you want to really get deep with it, when I say your great-great-grandmother, that includes you if you're from Europe. What did they call the women who possessed great ecological wisdom in Europe? Witches. And they burned them at the stake before they colonized everybody else, driving women's ecological wisdom out of society was the first and necessary step for industrialism, for colonialism, and now it has to come back in. So I went deep on you because it's deep that you literally have people who are people of color who will tell you that caring about the earth is a white thing. That's a sign of deeply internalized colonization. And you have European descended folks who honestly believe that they should be the authors of the ecological solution for everybody else, as if their culture wasn't a big part of the problem in the first place, and as if nobody else has anything else to say about it or anything smart to say about it. And so trying to get this thing worked out requires some honest truth-telling, but also requires some belief that, again, we need each other and we can get these solutions going. I was in Flint. I got a chance to go there with me and Mark Ruffalo and some other people went to try to keep the cameras there. And I saw something in Flint that I have not heard a single person talk about. Not one single person talked about it. When we got to Flint, and you guys know the story, poison pipes for profit, shoved down the throats of the community by a very, very bad governor, in my view, Republican governor. And they'll tell you it was a Democratic city council. That's a lie. But there was a miracle happening in Flint. All those poor black families with those poison pipes suffering the way they were, with the government fighting and the Republican state level saying it's the local people's fault or Democrats and vice versa, all the food fight going on, and in the background, white, male, union pipe fitters were going around for free fixing the pipes. Think about that. White, male, union pipe fitters, a bunch of whom I guarantee you voted for Donald Trump, were going around for free, tearing out those poison pipes and putting in clean pipes and saving babies. Now that's not discussed. That doesn't fit into the liberals' view of the Trump voters. It doesn't fit into the conservative view that those towns were all terrible and ruined by, black folks and Democrats. But that's what I'm talking about. The country is much better than this nonsense, food fight politics. We need each other. We took African-American leaders from South Central who have been dealing with an addiction crisis in South Central Los Angeles for 2 generations now, and asked them to give us advice and counsel about how to help the folks in West Virginia who are now having an addiction crisis with the opioid painkillers. And I think what's going to happen, I think we're going to wind up actually bringing African-American leaders from South Central Los Angeles to West Virginia to sit together and help each other. But my point is just that, you've got to have a view. You mentioned Flint, and this came to my mind. You've got to have a view. Just because somebody voted a way that you don't like, you might think it's a bad vote, doesn't make them a bad person, but it will make you a bad person if you write them off and won't find any common ground with them. because of what they did in November. But anyway, I see a whole bunch of people got questions now, so, all right, sorry. Okay, look, ask all the questions quickly, and I will answer it in batch, because I'm a TV guy, I can do that. So, all right, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Leslie. During the first part of your speech, you said sustainability. If you talk about sustainability to somebody, all they hear is you went to college. And I think that's part of the problem. How can we, as people who work in green jobs and for green jobs, reframe that conversation?
Great, thank you. Next.
What can the Love Army's role be in all of this?
Thank you.
How do we inspire more young folks to vote and participate? Go Cavs.
Dub Nation.
Byron Stall's National Roofing Partners. We help put solar arrays on top of Amazon distribution centers and Walmart's distribution centers. This question is particularly about the supply chain. And how do minority and women-owned and veteran-owned businesses, in your opinion, penetrate at a tier 1 level in sustainable opportunities?
Hello, my name is Jose Luis Esparza with Fifth Third Bank. My question is, how do we get out of this discussion about climate change and get into how do we implement a green economy?
Hi, my name is Lauren, and as a white, millennial, college-educated, tree-hugging individual, my question is, when you're sitting at these tables, whether it's a planning committee or policymakers or generally just trying to create a party, and you start seeing those lines of division being drawn, what kind of tools can you give some of us to utilize in that situation so that we are more cohesive moving forward?
Brian Gary, environmentalist.
So just 1 second. So, sister, you in the burgundy dress, you'll be the last question. Okay. So, all right, go ahead.
Brian Gary, environmentalist, running for office here. The question, how can we best align our budget with these values, or what are the 2 or 3 most important steps that you would take, because we don't really have much of what you're talking about here.
When you say much of what I'm talking about, what do you mean?
Well, as an example, we're not hiring inner city youth to put on solar panels. I mean, my company is, but hardly anybody else is. We're not hiring felons. They're not the integration that you're talking about. We're about the 5th or 6th most segregated city in the country. We're not one Cincinnati as we should be. We're not integrated economically. The division lines are very clear among neighborhoods, and businesses are not as strongly as they should be reaching out and creating a green economy for all.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Ronnie Nixon. My question is, how do you restore the viewpoint of our youth and the community support when the community is still thriving forward?
Well, why do you ask that question? Tell me more.
I asked it because my company supports our youth and giving them skills that are outside of the traditional education. So when I come across more of our youth, it seems more of a lost spirit because the education system or the community has started to lower the activities that they have to, entertain them. In landscaping, we do flower plantings, but I want to move towards more green solutions within the community of all of our services for our children. So when you talk about the youth and what you do with the program, it kind of hit home with me because I feel like our youth is our future. And if our future is tainted and it's not thriving forward, then we're not going to thrive forward as a community.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Good. All right. Well, thank you. And what's it, you said? Go back. You said your company. What's your company's called? What's your company's name?
My company is Chopping It Up All Around, Landscaping and Lawn Care.
Wonderful. Well, give her a round of applause. She's doing some good stuff. All right. So let me run through this real quick. First question was about how to reframe sustainability. I would never tell anybody I was working on sustainability. I know it's on your business card, but I'm just saying. because it doesn't mean anything to anybody. It's that kind of elite bureaucratic in-speak. You know, we always say, well, sustainability and equity. That's grant proposal talk. Who said that? That's grant proposal talk. But you can't take grant proposal talk into the laundromat. You know, I just challenge people. When I was coming up, we had to, you know, we were far left, so we couldn't just sit up in the office. We had to go out and try to promote our left-wing ideology. And so, you know, you have to go to the laundromats and sports bars and nail salons and barbershops and talk with people. And all that language falls right out your mouth. You can't even form your mouth to say that at a community level. You know, I very quickly learned the first thing, I would go in anybody, I could get anybody's attention anywhere. I would just say, excuse me, I'm trying to get Pookie a job. Is anybody with me? Right? I mean, just right there, because that's where people are at. And you have to start where people are at. You are selling work, wealth, and health. That's all you have. Everything you're doing is work, wealth, and health. Nobody is going to turn you down if you are showing up with work, wealth, and health. If you're showing up with sustainability and equity, they just don't know what you're talking about. So as far as the Love Army, right after Trump took over, I was very upset. I have renewed therapy, so I'm more calm. But I said, and you know, sometimes you say things and you know, you young people understand better than we do, because nothing goes away. You say it and it just is there forever in digital, you know, eternity. And I was being interviewed by the Rolling Stone, and I said, well, Trump built a hate army and took over our government, and we're going to build a love army and take it back. And that was a little harsh. And then, Rolling Stone puts #1 headline, Van Jones launches Love Army. And you know, as soon as I saw it, I was like, okay, this is bad. Because we already have like 4 or 5 programs that we run at the Dream Corps, none of them called the Love Army. And sure enough, every one of my program directors, but it just sort of took off. We have 100,000 members across the country, and you know, focused on empathy. And we're going to do a big tour. I signed up with Rock Nation, which is Jay-Z's company. So Jay-Z and I are working together now, and I'm going on a big Love Army tour this summer just to go around and just talk like we're talking here. I just think we've got an empathy gap in the country. I think the liberals, you guys are probably more liberals than conservatives, so I can fuss at y'all. I think the liberals have helped their opponent. Every time you say straight, white, cisgendered male, you automatically have put horns on that person with the liberals before you even know, is this person a sick coal miner with black lung disease who's had his pension stolen, who you should be marching with? Is this person a Rust Belt worker that's been out of work for 3 years or 7? The whole framework has just become a push away for that group, and I understand it. I've been black almost my whole life. For about 6 months, I was into U2 real big, and that doesn't count. So, but most of my life, I've been black, so I get it. But I think we've created an empathy gap where we have forgotten or don't look at facts and data. Look, I'm against racism, I'm against sex, all that sort of stuff. But the only demographic group in the country whose life expectancy is going in reverse, white males. Now, they're still going to outlive me, but the elevator is going down, not up. Why? It's opioid painkiller deaths, suicides, diseases of hopelessness and despair, people drinking themselves to death. When you have more people dying of opioid painkiller deaths, accidental painkiller overdoses, more people died of that last year than died of HIV/AIDS at the height of the HIV crisis in the 1980s. More people died of that, mostly these little white towns. So when you have that kind of catastrophe going on, hurt people holler. If you want to look at what counties went big for Trump and red counties that overperformed Romney, you just lay the map on where all those funerals are for those opioid deaths, and it's just exactly right there. That's where the pain is and the liberals aren't. It's where the pain is and the liberals aren't. So the Love Army is going to try and do something about that. How do you inspire young people? Look, I think young people are mainly inspiring me at this point. The entire Bernie phenomenon, whether you liked it or not, was driven by young people, their energy, their aspirations, their hopes, their dreams. Occupy Wall Street, whether you like it or not, Black Lives Matter, the dreamers. I think we need to just celebrate more the ones that are already doing it. Brother asked about how to get the tier 1 groups to be more diverse and inclusive. I don't know, but it's a shame. We have solar companies in Oakland. You walk in the front door in Oakland, in downtown Oakland, and it's all white. I'll say that again. Downtown Oakland, solar companies. You walk in and it's all white. And you ask them, well, why? Oh, well, you know, we have a lot of students that are interested in UC Berkeley, and they come here. And I said, well, hold on a second. Can we just step outside for a second on the sidewalk? That's Laney College right there. I can see Laney College. You got to get on the BART train 10 stops to get to UC Berkeley. Laney College is right there, full of black and brown kids. You mean you can't just say yoo-hoo? I mean, that's too expensive of a recruiting program for you? Just hollering, hey. So ecological apartheid is real, man. I don't have any good answers for it. I've been complaining about it my whole career. But you guys know, and you can do something about it. You don't need me to tell you what to do about it. Climate change, I never talk about climate change. I talk about climate disruption because I think if you're going to have the conversation, let's at least be clear about what we're talking about. We're talking about us disrupting the climate, not just the climate changing. The climate's been changing the whole time we've been here. But the climate disruption. But in general, people want jobs. I always say, listen, you remember they said, the President Duty said climate change is a hoax. And that's why he pulled out of the Paris Agreement. So I went on TV and I said, hold on a second. If climate change is a hoax, it's the best hoax we ever thunk up. Because we got 190 countries to sign up to go clean, which just pulls the rug out from under the Middle East. And then where are they going to get the clean technology from? Germany and the United States. So if it's a hoax, this is the best hoax ever. Because we just got turned 190 countries into 190, we just turned 190 countries into 190 customers for U.S. clean energy. And the only sector in the country that's growing by leaps and bounds is clean energy. We already have more solar panel installers and people working in solar today in America than we have coal miners. We already have more wind energy workers than we have coal miners. We're about to have more people working on smart batteries and Tesla and stuff like that than we have coal miners. We only have 50,000 coal miners in America. If you double the number of coal miners, you have 100,000 people working in the coal industry. And guess what? That wouldn't even dent the unemployment rate. I mean, like we grew 120,000 jobs last month and nobody even noticed across the thing. So you could double coal and do nothing. So if you have a hoax that is such a good hoax that 190 countries want to become your customers, more power to you. You're a con man. You should like this hoax. So I don't understand. I'm confused. This is a great hoax. Now, I know it's not a hoax, and you know it's not a hoax, but if it is a hoax, I avoid a lot of nonsense. I try to keep it practical. And you're practical. The Heartland's practical. What you're doing is practical. Just keep it there. As long as you're talking about work, wealth, and health, you're going to be all right. You talk about how to align the budget and that kind of stuff. Listen, people follow dreams, man. You know, every one of you guys has stuff written in your diaries for 13 years, 20 years, and you're still not doing it. That's the problem. Don't blame Trump. You got a dream you're scared to tell your best friend about, which you were born to deliver on and still have time to deliver on. And when you start delivering on that, people follow dreams. They had some black kid, 30-something years old, stood up on some steps in Washington, D.C. freestyling. What's his name, Dr. King? 33? Got up there, read this terrible speech. I mean, the I Have a Dream speech is a terrible speech on paper. What they handed him to read, the committee wrote it, and it's garbage. That's why nobody remembers the first 3/5 of the speech, 4/5 of the speech. It's garbage. It's just some, it should be called I Have a Nightmare. I mean, it's a terrible speech. Yeah, I said it. I give good speeches. And then a sister standing behind Dr. King said, "Tell him about your dream, Martin." Who said that? Mahalia Jackson. She had heard him in Detroit try to give a speech at a big labor thing, and he had this stumbling ending about a dream, but it didn't work. It fell flat. It happens to everybody, even Dr. King. But Mahalia saw him bombing in front of the whole world with this garbage speech he was reading, and she said, "Tell him about your dream, Martin." And he never reads the last paragraph, pushes back, looks up, and off the dome, as we say in hip hop, off the dome does this whole thing about his dream. I have a dream. Is the most profound act of slam poetry in the history of the Republic. Freestyling, some 33-year-old kid freestyling about his dream. The guy's got a monument and a birthday holiday. Pushed a president out the way to have a holiday for this brother. Because he's talking about his dream. You guys have incredible, since you were young, dreams that we're all suffering because you won't just go ahead and at least give it a good old try. We gave an applause for the young woman. Give you some tools and get out of here. Blind spots, sore spots. Working in coalition. Blind spots, sore spots. If you are one up on a power dynamic, you have blind spots. If you are one down on a power dynamic, you have sore spots. Your job is always and only one thing. Shrink your blind spots and shrink your sore spots so we can work together better. Everybody in here has privilege. I guarantee you, most of you have neurotypical privilege. They say, what? Yeah, that's right. You have neurotypical privilege and you never own it. What is he talking about? If you have a kid with autism, you know what I'm talking about. They have to teach kids with autism how to deal with people like you because you have neurotypical privilege and you never acknowledge it. So if you're one down on the autism thing, they got to teach you. All right, here's the deal. If you see a neurotypical person, for whatever reason, when two neurotypical people walk into a room, they walk toward each other. No one knows why, but they do that. So if you walk into a room and there's a neurotypical person, that person's probably going to walk toward you. You should walk toward them. We don't know why, but if you don't, they're going to think you're weird. They're going to think you're strange. You're going to get bullied. You're going to get mistreated. You have to conform to how neurotypicals do things. Neurotypicals. If one neurotypical is talking to another neurotypical, if this neurotypical has a sad face the other neurotypical will also make a sad face. No one knows why. No one knows why. But if you don't do that, they're going to think that you're cold, unfeeling, etc. So when you see them make the sad face, practice it. Make a sad face too. Neurotypicals, for whatever reason, even if they don't know each other, if they don't like each other, if they see each other, they will start talking. They will say things to each other. No one knows why, but it's how they are. So if they start talking to you, you have to start talking back. But, and this is important, do not, under any circumstances, talk about things that happen in the restroom or death. Because for some reason, neurotypicals freak out when you do that. No one knows why. Okay. Did you even know you were a neurotypical until right now? Blind spot. Blind spot. When you're one up on a power dynamic, your blind spot may be total. You may not even know anything about the category that you're in. When you're one down, you know everything about it. It's a matter of survival. One up. Go to a college campus. Ask a dude. You're about to go to college. Ask a dude, what's it like to be a male on this campus? And the guy will say, beer? Ask a young woman what it's like. You can't be on this part of the campus at night. This fraternity is dangerous. This professor is a predator. Infinite amount of information. One up, blind spot. One down, sore spots, but infinite amount of wisdom, information, thoughts. Why? They're thinking about it all the time. Matter of survival. So if we can just accept that we all have blind spots and we all have sore spots, and unless you are a left-handed lesbian of color in a wheelchair, living in a third world, slum, you have some privilege. And everybody has at least, even, you say, well, what about a straight, white, rich, male, blonde, the whole deal? Everybody was young at one point. And when you're young, you get treated like garbage. You are constantly around tall people who are stupid and who won't listen to you. So we've all been one up, we've all been one down. We all have sore spots, we all have blind spots. And if we can just raise our hand and say, you hit my sore spot, or when somebody says that, rather than saying, here's how you know you got a blind spot. I don't even see race. You might want to go see a doctor because I do, and it's real. And, well, why do we even have to talk about this? It's so divisive to even raise this issue. Massive blind spot. Just insane blind spot. And just making everybody else's sore spots worse and then blaming them. At the same time, those of us who have sore spots, we have a responsibility too to try to shrink them so we have less reactivity over time and we can be more effective partners. So we all have work to do. And you don't get out of your work by pointing to the other person not doing their work. That's called third grade. We don't do that. We're grown folks. But it is not as complicated as we make it. Some of us have been incredibly successful in places like Baltimore and other places who you'll hear from later on. But it requires an understanding that unless we do some of this hard inner work and some of this hard interpersonal work, we have no chance of changing this bigger planetary work for which we were born. Thank you very much.